What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Motorfest. So as y'all know, the Nissan Z and or the 240SX was added recently with I guess the new month of Motorfest. So I am pretty dang happy to see both of these cars in this game, but I have to admit one thing, I am kind of surprised the Nissan Z is in here, but then again, it's also in Need for Speed Unbound, which honestly, who actually plays that now? But if you guys are wondering, by the way, this car is going to be available in the store later on. That way you can buy it. So if you do not have the season pass, at least you can get the Z later on, which I would say a lot of players are indeed going to want this car. Now, I have to admit though, I have not seen any of these in real life yet. I'm also in Florida at the moment, so I'm not sure if anyone has one down here, but I do think this car at the same time is going to be insanely rare because, well, the dealerships are obviously marking them up like 50,000 over MSRP, so you obviously have a way bigger of a market when the car's, 100 grand instead of 50, so that is probably going to hurt them a bit, but we also have a lot of customization here, so we have a carbon hood, and then the next hood here I'm guessing is going to be for like the rays of the sun, or, if it was like snowing, then the sun would hit like the snow or something like that, so that is my guess there, but moving over to the next one here, we have a vent. Then we have a carbon one with a vent. Looks kind of nice there. Then we have that one. I don't really like that. Then we have the carbon version of that. So for me, guys, I'm probably going to leave this part stock. At least some of the parts do look pretty good on this car. I would probably leave this stock, but at least you do have the option for like a carbon hood and stuff. But moving over to the front bumpers now, guys, we have the blacked out headlights here, which I have to admit do honestly look pretty dang cool. Moving over to the next one. Not really liking the way those do look. Ooh, look at that one. So that adds like carbon fiber to it, probably blacked out headlights, no? Okay, interesting. Now we have the carbon splitter on the front there. Looks okay. Not really digging the way that looks, how that like sticks out like almost like a snow plow. Then we have this one. Ooh, yeah, that one is looking pretty dope, I'm not gonna lie. Let's add that to it. It's kind of funny when actually looking at the front of this now, I'm not really sure if I'm a big fan of how the black headlights look, so I think I'm actually going to go with the fourth one here, which gives the regular headlights, and also like the carbon fiber splitter. Heading over to the ninth one now, we have this one with the weird looking headlights. Then we have this one here. That one looks kind of interesting. Then we have those. Moving over to this one with the big splitter. Then we have that one. Then we have 14. What in the world? Look at like the front pieces on that. That is it's kind of weird because you can tell they look fake and it really doesn't fit the car that well. So I don't think people will use that, including myself. Moving over to the front fenders, let's see the wide body kit. Well, guys, I have to admit, it looks a lot better than the SX does. That thing looked terrible. At least the wide body kit on the Z does look decent, and I feel like a side profile, doesn't that kind of look like a BRZ, or am I tripping? Kind of looks like a BRZ there. I would say though, at least the fitment does look good, and like the tires don't stick out way farther than the fenders, or like the fenders stick way farther out than the tires. So I think everybody is going to like the way the body kit does look on this car, especially compared to the 240. That thing was something else, but at least we do have a proper looking body kit for the Z here. So if you guys are a fan of this car, at least you do have that option now. For the rims though, you cannot put any of the actual crew rims on this car either, which was kind of shocking, but at least you can have the black finished ones here and or the gold ones here, which I definitely have to add this to it. Then moving over to the caliper colors, let's go with yellow because the car is blue. Then mirrors here. I don't really like those. Leave the stock ones on there. Moving over to the skirts, we have the carbon. Looks kind of nice. Let's add that to it. Then we have that one, which I have to admit, guys, doesn't look bad at all on this car. Sometimes, like, these skirt upgrades look terrible, but for the Z here, I would say this one does actually look proper, and or most likely does fit the car. But moving over to the last one here, you get, like, a crazy-looking vent on the bottom. Not really feeling it, but again, at least it does fit the car nicely and or doesn't look out of place, so I always see that as, like, a win. But moving over to the back fenders now, the back body kit does look nice as well. Like, even the back wide fenders does fit this thing pretty nicely, so I have to give that to them. Then moving over to the wings, though, we have the carbon fiber back wing here. Then we have that one. Ooh, that's pretty dope. I ain't gonna lie. What is that? What is that design? It almost reminds me of like one of those RWB Porsches. Does not fit the Z whatsoever, to be honest. Then we have this one. And then finally that wing. Doesn't look terrible. For me though, guys, I have to go with this one on here. I love how it says Fair Lady Z. That is awesome. I have to add that to it. Then moving over to the bumpers here, we have the blacked out taillights. Then we have the crazy looking like split exhaust pipes there. That looks kind of cool actually. Then we have the dual. That looks insane. Now I would say though if that's going to... Oh, there it is. I was about to say if we have the blacked out taillights with those, I am 100% picking that, adding it to it. Then we have that one finally. Moving over to the interior. Now you guys know what I have to do with this car because this thing is blue. I have to go a yellow interior, so let's do that here. Stitching is kind of nice. How about we do something like that with it? Now I do want to mention, by the way, guys, zooming in on this wheel, you can't add any carbon fiber to it. I wouldn't say this is going to be a bad thing, but having some carbon on that steering wheel and or like the screen part would have been pretty awesome. And then, of course, moving over to the vanity items of the Z here, I did notice, guys, you can also add like the super engine and or like a V12 and or like something like a V8. So at least you do have these sound options available if you do want to change it. Now, spawning outside here, guys, I have to admit, I love the coloring of this map. Like, the sun is going down, and it almost gives, like, a completely different vibe when driving and stuff like that. But I have to admit, guys, I really do like the way I have this Z set up, and I would have to admit, if I was to have a Z in real life, it would most likely look almost just like this. So I feel like I did get this thing pretty dang close, but do let me know in the comments below, guys, how would you spec your Z out? Like, what would you guys do for your interior and or your exterior color? I feel like everybody may have a different setup, but overall, guys, I really do love the way this car does look here, basically going in nighttime, and I really have to give it to Ubisoft, not only for these car models, but also for this engine sound. Now moving over to the interior of the Z here, guys, I really do love the overall detail of this car. So, for example, you can see all the buttons in here and or like the detail of them. Obviously, the screen there is going to say the Z, then you see like the dials on the top, and you can also see like the button detail of like the AC on the bottom. That is awesome. Obviously, the detail of my car here is yellow and or yellow stitching, so at least you can see like a different type of spec and or like different colors in that said vehicle, and I really do love seeing that type of detail. But looking at the actual instrument cluster here, guys, you are then going to notice the RPM reader. To the left of that, it's also going to be the gear you are in as well, which is pretty dope. And you can also see the car does say 46 miles, which I don't know if I've actually driven the car that long, but driving the vehicle here, you'll also notice that will indeed change. And for some odd reason, it says 27 miles with the fuel thing there. And then obviously the fuel gauge, I'm guessing that's like the mileage of what I'm getting. So obviously, whoever has this car needs to put some gas in it. So now taking the Z on a test drive, guys, one of the first things I notice about this car is it's obviously going to be quick. Not like crazy fast though, because obviously many of these street tier 2 vehicles are not as quick as before. And I would say that's probably going to be a good thing compared to like the Crew 2, but I do want to see what this car can get to as a top speed. Now, I would almost take a guess and say maybe 238 miles an hour and or something pretty close to that, but let's see here. Getting around this turn after the speed trap, so this might be a good place to do it. If I don't run into anything in the same time and or process of it. So hitting nitrous here. 238 miles an hour, 237. So far, guys, I have to admit, every street tier 2 vehicle I've driven does around 238 miles an hour and or like 237. Obviously, I went way too fast around that corner. Do not worry, the pro settings on this vehicle are pretty decent and or make it turn pretty dang good, so I wouldn't say that's going to be a big issue with it. Now, one thing that's interesting though is every street tier 2 vehicle has the exact same top speed, so it's more in fact going to come down to how they do handle and or like their overall speed. So for the Z, guys, I did decide to jump into one of the Made in Japan races. Of course, this is indeed on level 5 difficulty, so I will most likely be battling most of the AI the entire time, but hey, that would probably make this car actually be better and or probably put it to the test. So, oh, look at that, I passed them all. Now, I have to admit, guys, racing this vehicle, one thing I did notice is like the first overall like time you drive it, you're probably going to go, dang, this thing's kind of slow. And to be honest, in some areas, going against level 5 AI, the car might seem slow, but I have to admit, it isn't going to be as slow as it might look like first impressions and all that, so I would recommend giving this thing a shot if you did drive and you were like, man, this thing can't compete. Like, it isn't going to be quick enough, and obviously the AI are really fast, and for some odd reason, the R8 AI is always insanely quick, guys. Like, that car, no matter what event you go against that vehicle, and it is faster than you every time in some areas, so that's probably going to be like a difficulty thing they did. But one thing that might also help a bit is braking before the corner instead of in it. I would say that might be slightly helpful, but after all that though, guys, I have to admit, driving impressions of the Z though, this car does seem to be decent. And is it going to be like the best street tier 2? I would probably say that's going to be up in the air because I do need to test the other vehicles out, but so far I have to admit this thing does seem to be pretty decent, and maybe it might not be like the best car in the game. I would say the biggest thing here is at least we do have a new Z in Motorfest, so I was always wondering if this car was going to be added into the crew too, and I kind of figured, I was like, you know what? They're probably saving a lot of these vehicles for like a new game and or something different, and why would they add something like a Z into like the crew 2? So at least we do have cars like this in Motorfest. And once again, guys, if you do not have the season pass, do not worry because this car is going to be available later on for everybody. So if you do want to get it, you will have to buy it with in-game money. But hey, at least the vehicle is going to actually be in the game. So one thing I have been trying to figure out, though, I can't lie on, is why actually have the season pass. And I do figure in, I guess, some way you obviously get the cars earlier, and I would say the Dodge Charger is most likely going to be like an exclusive vehicle to that, but I need to pass this dude, bruh. What would probably help me is if I can turn better and or not brake in the turn for that matter, so I gotta catch up to Fred here, dude. It's funny how I did change my settings around before this race to really mix them around, and I have to admit, I think the car might be slightly worse than how I had it before. I am not even going to win this event, my goodness. Well, that does go to show, guys, if you do mess up on certain corners with how the AI are, you won't even be able to catch them. Funnily enough, I have been leveling up the touring car category, and one thing I noticed, a lot of the vehicles do tend to be kind of slow, and or especially, like, I guess, the AI are probably way too dang fast in some areas, but no matter how fast your car actually is and or maxed out, even if you have like a chemist set, guys, the AI are going to be a challenge, and I have to admit, I am insanely glad they did do that, but I would probably say it's probably going to have a lot of mixed opinions. But overall, guys, I have to admit the Z is going to be an insanely fun car to use. Is it going to be like the best street car in the game? I would have to test it out more and probably put it against some of the better street cars to see what it can do. But overall, first impressions, it has great customization. I would say it's probably going to be a competitive top speed because, well, every single street car does obviously have like the exact same top speed, so that isn't going to be much of a difference there. But again, guys, let me know your thoughts on the Z in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more insight.